Around in the control room, getting all in position as we are set to embark on yet another segment of CW Iowa Live. Lou and Jackie here, along with a good friend, Michael Jankins. He's a bankruptcy attorney, and we're going to be touching on a subject here this morning, Jackie, we haven't touched on for a little while that is very important.
Yeah, you always give us great advice when you're on our program, but sometimes people still make mistakes when it comes to bankruptcy.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the different kinds of things that people do before they decide to file bankruptcy, kind of like their last-ditch effort to avoid filing bankruptcy.
Now, this is in an effort, like, is it like to say, okay, at least I tried, or what do you think the reason for some of these things are?
I think it's the people's efforts to try to avoid paying, filing bankruptcy, so they'll do everything else they can think of to avoid it. And some of the ideas that they think of really don't solve anything.
So
and
it's
make
not in your best interest to go through with some of these?
Most of the time, none of them. It usually makes matters worse.
Okay.
So this is before they've decided to file. They're still trying to get out of the hole.
Mostly, yes.
Okay. So what are those mistakes?
So the biggest thing on the list, I guess, number one, people will go and start taking their credit cards and get one and pay off a bunch of others with balance transfers. I mean, the idea is okay. You know, some of these offers are 0% interest for a limited period of time, maybe a year, and so then they'll go pay 2 or 3 other credit cards off where they owe 10 or 15,000 bucks and have 0 interest for a while. And that's all well and good, but it's not usually a permanent 0% rate. And it also supposes that the person's going to change their habits and not charge anymore on credit cards, and most of the time that doesn't take place. They continue to charge more on credit cards, so they're just running up more balances, and nothing's really improved.
Now, in your experience, when people do that, say they transfer all the money to one credit card, are they spending more on that new credit card, or are they going back and using the old ones again?
Well, at least the people I see have gone and charged more on the cards that they paid off. Yeah. So they were 0, but a year later they're not 0 anymore.
That's what I'm talking about.
The problem, in other words, they haven't changed their habits, and all they've done is consolidated a bunch of debt onto one credit card and freed up their other credit cards and charged them up again.
Wow. And
now there's more companies out there that are offering these consolidations. I think Lending Tree and Lending something or another I see. Personally, I think these companies don't have a long-term future because the type of loans that they're making aren't good loans, at least how they advertise it. And so we're having clients going to those kind of places. And it's the same thing with the credit card. They're consolidating a bunch of their other credit cards, getting this big loan, and even we're seeing these Discover as a loan program where people are consolidating their debt. And then it would be great if they didn't charge anymore on any of the other credit cards, but now they freed them all up. Instead of cutting them up, they charged them up. So
go along with credit cards, that also kind of works with debt settlement agencies, is right?
Well, that's a whole, yeah, I mean, that's a really bad way to try to get out of your debt, because if you're wanting to pay your debts back and avoid bankruptcy, trying to settle them out for 40 and 50 cents on the dollar, I don't really know how much better that makes somebody feel rather than taking bankruptcy, because you're really not paying back your debts. I mean, you're paying something to those companies if they ever get anything. The concept is that these companies will tell you they're going to consolidate all your debt and make deals. They claim they're real good deal makers, like somebody else we hear about, but they don't make such great deals. I mean, they'll settle little credit cards first, so they can't be accused of outright not doing anything.
Right.
But then you're sitting out there with a one for 10,000 or 15,000. Well, it takes a long time before they can save up enough money to get to them. And so these people come to me because they're getting sued, their wages are being garnished, and the program ended up being a dismal failure. And the people were led to believe that they wouldn't have to worry about such things happening. Otherwise, of course, they wouldn't have entered into such a program.
Right.
And they end up filing bankruptcy anyway, but they've been paying out several thousands of dollars, and a great deal that ends up just being fees in the pocket of the debt settlement company. So frankly, at least in my opinion, that's about the worst thing somebody can do, because the minute they get into that program, they've already destroyed their credit because they stopped paying everybody, and most of those companies aren't going to get paid, if at all, for a really long time, so they've obliterated their credit.
So you've done more harm than any
Probably
kind of
more
good.
harm than anything.
Okay. Well, another way that people are like, okay, I can get out of this jam if I just borrow money, and many people go to their family members in order to do that.
Right. We get a lot of folks that come to us, and so they've borrowed money from grandma, and now all of a sudden they owe grandma several $1,000s as one of their debts, but they kept using their credit card. So, you know, it's unlikely.
It's almost another payment you have to figure in.
It's unlikely grandma's going to sue them, but the problem is now grandma or dad or mom's dragged into the whole picture, and so now it's bad enough, you know, you feel badly because you couldn't pay your credit cards. Now,
Right.
if you can't pay your own family member, then that's a really big deal. And unfortunately, some of these family members end up getting dragged into bankruptcy because we end up having people that have helped out their kids, and they end up coming to us. We've seen the kid, and they had all these debts, and they end up using grandma or grandpa or mom or dad's credit card because they let them, and they charged them all up, and so they got to file bankruptcy too, and they come to see me. Or we have a lot of grandma and grandpas that have a lot of credit card debt because they were helping their kids, they were helping their grandkids, and because they didn't have enough money for this, that, or the next thing, so instead of them getting their own credit cards, they just go hit up somebody else. Wow. So it's just not a good idea to bring family into your messy situation, because it'll either take them down too, or you just feel real badly if you weren't able to pay back your family. So the best thing is to avoid doing that, and you know, because again, people don't change their habits. The stuff that got them into the problem, they're not really changing it. They're putting a Band-Aid on it, and so that's not a good idea.
Well, I'm sure there's money accessible elsewhere for someone to try to pay off some of their debts.
Well, there certainly seems to be money all over the place, and it's easy to get. People should choose that versus getting their family involved, but the best thing is to avoid those things too, and just at least see a professional to talk about your debt situation, whether it be consumer credit, if you're not too far in, or if you need to at least find out what your options in bankruptcy are. Well, at least find out how this thing's going and what you might be able to do, either before it's too late, or if it's too late, then you just do what you got to do to straighten out your mess.
Let's talk about some other things.
As I say,
here.
for example, people think maybe home equity loan, borrowing against their 401k, like those are things that people go through their heads to try and get themselves out of debt.
Yeah, what's your thought on those two?
They're resources that people can get money out of, and it's not a good idea. If you have to file bankruptcy, those are protected assets. Nobody can take them from you. So your 401k, I mean, number one, if you do take money out, either you cash it out, then you have to pay taxes on that money.
Right.
There's a 10% penalty if you're not at the age where you're allowed to take it yet. And so you've just lost money. If you're borrowing against your 401k, well, it's great. You got that money, you paid off other stuff. Well, now that money's coming out of your paycheck, and you don't have any choice. So if you have some emergency at home where you've got to go fix the furnace or fix the roof and lay out a big expense of money, well, you can't just go to your 401k loan people and go, oh, stop taking that out of my check for a while, I need the money.
Right.
As long as you're employed at the company, you don't have an option. It's coming out. And just like your taxes are, and heck, you can even manipulate those so they don't come out, but you can't do anything to stop the 401 loan.
All right. Some of the money that you have to pay out is because maybe some property that you might own. Well, what about some folks that say, well, if I just take my name off the property and give to somebody else, what does that do?
Well, yeah, this is not a good idea before bankruptcy. Some people go, I don't want to lose my stuff, so they start shifting it out of their name. Well, the problem is, if you do that in the bankruptcy, you have to make disclosures to the court in the paperwork about anything that you've transferred out of your name for 2-year period.
2 years.
2 years.
That's a long time.
And people usually aren't planning that far
far in
ahead.
advance for bankruptcy.
They're trying to do it now, aren't they?
And then if they don't disclose it because they think they're smarter than everybody and no one will find out,
Right.
well, people do find out, and there are things where people can check. The bankruptcy court trustees have resources that they check, and if it's found out that you didn't tell about these things, you can go to prison. It's a crime.
Really?
It's a felony,
Didn't know that.
and it's a bad deal.
I was going to say,
And
is there a penalty? Obviously, there is a big
5
one.
years in federal prison and a $500,000 fine.
Okay,
up
one
to.
more thing we want to make sure we get to before we let you go here. Talking about maybe you borrowed some money from a family member, and of course tax time is coming up. People are getting refunds.
Yes.
Get your refund back. Okay, I'm going to pay back my mom. I'm going to pay back the money she lent me.
And this is real common. These are people I'm working with. So, I mean, they've
Right.
got me as a resource, say, hey, should I do this? Is it okay to do this? Well, of course. They don't talk to me about these things. And we have them come in and we go, did you get your refund? Yep, sure did. What'd you do with the $5,000? Well, I owed my mom $3,000. I had been borrowing money from her for about the last year and a half, and I could finally pay her back. That isn't going to fly because in bankruptcy, there's a concept called preference payments. What that means is you've chosen to pay somebody rather than somebody else and give them the benefit of getting their money. And for a family member, you have to disclose these things for 12 months before the bankruptcy.
Wow.
So if you pay a regular creditor, it's 90 days, but for a family member, it's 12 months. So don't do it.
So they can go back and get it.
The court can go back and get the money.
Wow.
Whoa.
All right. Mistakes to watch out for. You want to not make a mistake? Call this guy because he's going to put you on the right path of what can happen and the right way to file bankruptcy.
Yeah, 255-1855 is his number. Or go pay him a visit, 702nd Avenue, Suite 103. It is Michael Jankins. And also online, where's your website?
www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com.
There it is.
Perfect.
Good information again there, Michael. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We will be right back. This is CW Iowa Live.